This is Pavement Black.
Hi, and welcome to Pavement Black, the official podcast of the National Asphalt Pavement Association. I'm Richard Willis.
And I'm Brett Williams.
And we're continuing our conversations around leadership today. Now, one of the things that I'm always interested in is hearing from people who didn't necessarily think they were going to end up in the construction industry that found their way here. People with different backgrounds, such as accounting, finance, marketing, somehow are actively involved in asphalt companies.
So today I'm interested to hear how different backgrounds can feed into the industry and how they can be applied and how it can really help you in your leadership roles.
Yeah, diversity of perspective is something that's critically important as people want to grow and become better leaders. And so to help us with that conversation today, we've invited Amanda Mohr with Superior Bowen. Welcome to the podcast, Amanda. And could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your career path on how you got to where you are today?
Thanks, Richard and Brett. I'm the president of Superior Bowen. We're a heavy civil construction company, and we started in business in 1948. So we've been around 77 years. And we specialize in asphalt paving and production, materials testing and analysis, site preparation, development planning, and earthwork. And Superior Bowen is a legacy infrastructure group company alongside Haskell Lemon in Oklahoma City and J&R Construction in Southwest Kansas. My path is not a typical one, but I think there are a lot of steps along the way that set a foundation for where I'm at today. I grew up on a farm in the middle of Kansas and really learned the value of hard work and gained a deep respect for the hands-on nature of work with that foundational childhood experience. And then when I went to college, I wanted to blend my love for people and numbers, and so I majored in accounting. And for the first 14 years of my career, I had fairly traditional accounting roles. I earned my CPA certification, I worked in public accounting, and I worked in private industry, just not in our industry. But even in that experience, it was helpful for my role today because my boss emphasized at one of my companies the importance of really understanding the numbers and not just reporting them. And so I learned the value of having the curiosity of a student, being eager to learn about operations and about people, and then having the heart of a teacher and translating that knowledge that I gained into helping others understand the link between their operating decisions and the financial results. So I came into the industry in 2010 when I joined an operating company that Summit Materials had just acquired. And for those who don't know, Summit was a construction materials company that started in 2009, was backed by Blackstone Private Equity, issued an IPO in 2015, and then sold in 2025. So through that experience, I spent about a decade there in strategic financial roles and really gained a deep understanding of our industry and appreciation for the people of our industry. Then in March of 2020, I joined the Bowen family in an accounting capacity to take care of their outside investments. And in December of that year, I stepped into the role of president for Superior Bowen.
So you shared your background being in finance and really tying the understanding of what those numbers mean beyond just having a balance sheet. But I'm curious if you could tell us a little bit about how the skills you learned through your career really have helped you grow in your leadership in the construction industry.
Sure. I think finance helped me grow into my leadership in the construction industry in a variety of ways. First was the circumstances to which I was indoctrinated into the industry. In my first job at a Summit company, I helped implement an ERP system. And when you do that, you really have to learn about the operational decisions that trigger a financial transaction. And so you learn more deeply about the operations. And then Summit was an acquisitive company with some really lean forward ownership structures. And so there I learned more from a breadth of experience basis, where finance was not just a necessary evil, they were viewed as a partner to operations. And so I think there's three ways that experience really sharpened my leadership skills. First, I gained operational insight, really understood both the details of what drove results and the big picture. Second, strategic thinking and risk management. I have an analytical mindset naturally. And so I was able to use that to help balance risk, forecast impacts, and to make sure that decisions that were made resulted in desired outcomes. And I still use those skill sets today in my role where I'm analyzing job costs or thinking about an investment in capital expenses or thinking about an org chart and what makes sense and maybe what doesn't. And then third, change management. I had a lot of change management experiences in finance and found out that merging companies was way more than merging financial statements. It was about addressing the concerns of people and aligning motivations. And I heard a saying recently that's really resonated with me. As a leader, I'm not responsible for only what I say, but also for what people hear. And that was true, especially in an environment of high change, where the acquired companies would say, we were told nothing was going to change. And what they were actually told was, hey, you will still have operational decision making. But what they heard was, you're going to submit payroll the same way in the same system that you always have. So that experience taught me how critical it is to bring people along and to articulate the why behind change, both from a numbers perspective and a human perspective.
So you're the first non-family member to hold the position of president at Superior Bowen and the second woman to hold this position. Could you explain to listeners some of the differences between family-owned and like publicly traded businesses? And do you think the leadership requirements are different sometimes for the family-run companies?
That's a good question, Richard. I think every company is different, no matter what the ownership structure is. I think the focus areas can be different as well. Private companies tend to focus on long-term legacies, and public companies focus more on shareholder value or quarterly earnings, but both aim for profitability and growth. One of the key strengths that I've experienced in this private company at Legacy Infrastructure Group is that of the entrepreneurial spirit. And Trey Bowen, who's the CEO of Legacy, exemplifies this. And that's helped my own experience. Back in 2020, when he asked me to step into the role of president, he used his futuristic vision and his entrepreneurial mindset to prioritize leadership that's based on capability and trust rather than on tradition. And I think you don't see a lot of family-owned companies willing to sacrifice tradition. So I really appreciate that about Trey's leadership. And that brings me to a leadership requirement that I think is essential regardless of the environment, and that's trust. Whether you're part of a public company or a family-owned business, I think trust is essential to moving the needle.
Can we maybe expand on that? So you shared that trust is really an important leadership skill, but I'm curious maybe what the top 3 most important leadership skills, like in your experience and like what you've seen. So I'm guessing trust is one, but what are the other 2 top ones for you?
I really highly value courage and lifelong learning in addition to trust or authenticity. When I think about courage, I think about having the courage to set a vision, stand by it, and bring people along in it. Courage to make the tough decisions, hold people accountable, lean into conflict, and surround yourself with people who are smarter than yourself. One of the things that I've learned is courage is not the absence of fear, but it's pushing forward despite fear. From an authenticity or trust standpoint, people follow leaders that they trust, and trust is built through honesty, transparency, or vulnerability and consistency. In our industry, an industry where safety is critical, it's utmost importance to connect with people's hearts, not just their heads. And I heard a quote recently by John Maxwell that says, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So if we're going to advance our industry from a safety perspective, I think it's very important that our leaders are authentic. And then on lifelong learning, that just underscores continuous improvement. And the best leaders that I have worked with have never stopped learning, whether that's reading books, listening to podcasts like Pavement Black, attending conferences like NAPA, where they can network with other people who are solving the same types of problems, or just talk to the people in their field. That's one of my favorite things to do, is go talk to the people who are actually doing the work and ask them lots of questions and really try to learn and listen. I think if you're a lifelong learner, you are making better decisions and building stronger teams as a result.
So you are in the 2023 Women Who Mean Business program and are currently a Women of Asphalt. Could you highlight why you think these organizations are important for the industry and maybe share some of the key pieces of knowledge that you gained from being a part of these groups?
Yeah, thank you. So Women Who Mean Business, which it's been rebranded to Women of Influence, it starts as an award in Kansas City where 25 women are recognized each year for their career accomplishments and contributions. But it's more than an award, it's a network. So my class of 2023, we get together once a month for happy hour or coffees, and I've traveled internationally with some of the alumni from this network. And there's so much value in relationships. Our conversations range from strategic decision making to navigating difficult situations to finding a balance between career and family responsibilities. Like many women in leadership, I'm balancing a demanding career. My husband also has a demanding career. We have a child at home, we have adult children, we have grandchildren, and we have aging parents. So learning how others are managing these challenges and opportunities is really valuable. For Women of Asphalt, I've recently been asked to sit on their advisory board and very honored to do so. Only about 11% of employees in construction are women. And so Women of Asphalt does a great job of showcasing women and that they can have meaningful careers in our industry, that leadership is attainable. One thing I've learned is that research shows that women are more reluctant than men to raise their hand for new opportunities. There was a Harvard Business Review article in 2014 that highlighted a study where men would apply for promotions if they had about 60% of the qualifications, where women felt like they needed to have 100% of those qualifications. I think those hesitations come from social, psychological, and industry norms that say that women have to prove it. But regardless, both of the organizations, both Women of Influence and Women of Asphalt, they connect similar women on similar paths. They highlight excellence and they provide support. From the high achieving women that I know, including myself, we really want to just have the same standards and expect to be held to the same standards of excellence, leadership, and results as anyone else. So success in this industry, like in any industry, is based on hard work and a commitment to excellence. But when women see other women who are succeeding in our industry, when they have the right support system, and when they're encouraged to step forward before they're perfectly ready, I think it opens the door to more women thriving in leadership.
So our industry can change pretty quickly. I'm curious if you could maybe share, like, how do you adapt to change, or what advice would you give to leaders in industries that are evolving rather rapidly?
Sure. So what I've seen is that the fundamentals of our industry haven't changed. People come first, and strong business values always matter. No matter how the industry shifts, relationships, integrity, and quality are still the foundation. With that said, at Superior Bowen, we have a core value of learn, innovate, and grow. It's just part of our culture. We are intentional, though, on where we want to push the limits. Back when I started at Superior Bowen in 2020, we had already partnered with XBE, and that was an example of where we wanted to be on the leading edge. XBE is a software program and it's a logistics and job planning software, and they were fairly new in their development. But Trey Bowen, the CEO, had already put a stake in the ground and said, we want to be ahead. And I think by communicating that to people, it just really provides a strong direction. And as a result of our commitment with XBE, we've been able to drive efficiencies in our organization, and it's been transformative to us. So what I've learned really boils down to 3 points. Make informed strategic bets. So figure out where you want to chase the newest trend and where you want to let others chase the newest trend. Second, stay adaptable but grounded. Change is inevitable. Make sure you're holding up to your core values and business fundamentals. And third, it's all about the people. The best solutions come from a strong team culture. So the more I can empower our people to learn, empower them to challenge the status quo, the stronger we'll grow together.
I want you to think back to when you were first coming into your position at Summit. and then think about where you are today. How have your leadership strengths adapted or changed over the course of that time as you've started to work in the construction industry and grown in your positions?
I've always had a push for continuous improvement, starting with myself. And as I reflect over time, younger me made quicker assumptions. I was more black and white. I didn't value relationships as much as I do now. And I didn't value having the right people on the bus as highly as I value that now. I also didn't fully understand the power that having unique differences of people on the team could make, that 2 + 2 can equal more than 4 when you have synergies from having just a diverse group of people. I've heard a quote recently that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And that's been a big learning point for me, that if I can surround myself with the right team and provide and create space for true collaboration, then the entire team grows, and so do the solutions. With all that said, I think the core values that I've stood for have been unchanged: hard work, authenticity, commitment to excellence. Those things are the center of who I am. But my approach over the years has definitely matured, and it's no longer a focus on what I do, but on who I do it with and how I bring the people along.
So some of our guests this season have discussed this, and you mentioned that you also have an executive coach. Could you explain how this relationship has developed and how it's helped you in your leadership journey?
Sure. So in my past, executive coaches were not used often, and sometimes they were used to bridge a gap in leadership capabilities. But when I joined Superior Bowen, almost the whole executive team was working with the same executive coach, and I get to work with her today. And she really helps be a sounding board for me. She's an accountability partner, and working with her has accelerated my growth as a leader. And having all the leaders work with the same person has assisted in organizational alignment and in ensuring that we all have a common language. So I've really felt the benefit of working with one and highly recommend it.
Mentioned a few quotes today on the podcast, but maybe going up a little bit higher than that, is there a particular book or mentor or author that you commonly lean on, or when you're reading, you're like, yes, 100% this all the time, that you would recommend to people who are wanting to grow and wanting to develop some of these skills?
So one more quote: the best leaders create more leaders. And that quote is poignant to me because I've never had a formal mentor, but I've worked for and with a lot of great leaders. There's one leader in particular that I can think back to who was just transformative in being able to develop a culture and help others tie their value to the overall success of the organization. And he was able to drive results. He invited me into meetings that didn't necessarily have anything to do with finance, but instead gave me an overall purview of the organization as a whole and how different decisions all link together. So his impact really did help create a better leader in me. And then more recently, I've been privileged to work closely with Trey Bowen and Matt Bowen and the rest of the legacy team. And they're a group of really dynamic leaders who care a lot about growing with excellence. And we bring each other up. So we've created together a business that I'm really proud of. And we've taken it to the next step where companies who are looking for a unique solution to succession planning can participate.
So another thing we've done this season on several of the episodes was ask if you could summarize your leadership journey in one sentence. What would that be? And it can be a little challenging, but just hoping that maybe you'd share that with us.
My leadership journey has been a lot about stepping into challenges, about continuous learning and earning trust through hard work, integrity, and a focus on people.
You talked about facing challenges and looking at them as opportunities or places that you can learn from. And I'm just curious if you have any example or story of a challenge that maybe it didn't even go the way you expected, but it provided a learning opportunity or helped you as you progressed in your leadership. Do you have anything that you'd share?
I think I have a lot. I've made definitely my share of mistakes along the way, whether that's in choosing what people to have on the bus. So that was something I said was really important, having the right people on the bus, or not focusing on the right things. A challenge, though, that wasn't necessarily a result of a mistake. But in 2022, that's recent enough where you would remember all the commodity cost spikes. And to couple with that, in Kansas City, we had a very tight trucking market. And so we really saw the impact of that negatively on our business. And what I learned from that is just the importance of rallying the team. And what we've done as a result is we now have pre-mortem meetings where we imagine what all could go wrong and what would our response to that be. So we're just sharper focused on mitigation. And then it was rallying from, in a way, to get all the team together and really get everybody on the same page. And it strengthened the cohesiveness that we had as a team to do that.
For people listening to the podcast, what's one piece of advice that you think people should take away from this conversation that we've had today?
I would say view every challenge as an opportunity to learn and grow, and lead by investing in genuine relationships.
Amanda, it's been great. Really appreciate being on the podcast and sharing more about your leadership and your experience and just being part of a great conversation. So thank you.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity and appreciate what this podcast is doing for NAPA and for the industry.
I think one of the things that I pulled from this conversation today was really the importance of having the right people in the room. And sometimes the right people aren't who you necessarily always think should be the ones in the room. They're not necessarily people that think like you, but they're people that are willing to challenge you or make you think bigger or make you grow. And having that diversity of thought really stretches you, it pushes you, and can make you become a better leader over time.
Yeah, I thought that was a really good point she made. She talked about one of the leadership responsibilities, really encouraging your team to challenge the status quo. And she also made some points about the importance of having that unique or diverse group of thought within your teams. And throughout that concept of 2 + 2 can be more than 4, and just the importance of the team and how it's not simply just a kitchen problem that can actually lead to more of a multiplier when you're working with a team that's bringing a lot of thought to the challenges in your face. So I thought that was great. Thanks for listening to Pave It Black. Visit asphaltpavement.org/podcast to find more episodes, suggest a topic or guest, become a sponsor, or learn more about NAPA. Pave It Black is produced and copyrighted by the National Asphalt Pavement Association. Music by Colleague. As always, thanks to the dedicated workforce connecting diverse communities all across America.